Welcome to the Ringer NFL show. I'm your host, Sheil Kapadia. The trade deadline is 1 week away next Tuesday, November 4th at 4 p.m. Eastern. So we are doing a little trade deadline primer today. Who are the sellers? The teams that would be best served to make deals, acquire draft capital. We'll go over who those teams are. Who are the buyers? It feels like there's a lot of them. A lot of teams that could go into this saying, hey, if we add one piece, if we add two pieces, we have a real chance to make a run in the playoffs, maybe get to the Super Bowl. So I'm going to look at those teams, see what their specific needs are. And finally, what deals make sense? I gave you some fake trades last week with Deontay. I dug in even more this time to try to find more deals that make sense for the buyers, make sense for the sellers, try to look at past trades that have happened in the NFL, what the compensation was like. So I will throw all of those your way. All right, let's take a break. We come back and we get to the trade deadline primer. This is the Ringer NFL show presented by FanDuel. And if you're betting on the NFL, FanDuel's the place to do it. They've got everything. Same game parlays, quick bets for when you want to jump in live, and your way so you can set your own lines. The app's fast, it's easy to use, and best of all, when you win, you get paid out instantly. Download the FanDuel app or go to FanDuel.com/RingerNFL to get started. The Ringer is committed to responsible gaming. Please visit rg-help.com to learn more about the resources and helplines available, and listen to the end of the episode for additional details. Must be 21 plus and present in select states and 18 plus in D.C., Kentucky, and Wyoming. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit rg-help.com. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut. All right, we're back. Let's start with the sellers because teams are often very conservative this time of year. I don't know why. They always talk themselves into having a chance at a miracle, getting into the playoffs, when in reality, if they're thinking long-term, many of them should already be looking ahead to next season. And even teams that are realistic about where they stand, we know they're not just going to give away good players. That's not what NFL teams do. So when we say sellers, I'm often looking at teams that have to decide like which players fit into their future plans beyond this season. And if the players don't fit into their future plans, then does it make sense to move them? So if you're out of the playoff picture, I mean, one thing that always just irks me, if you have pending free agents and you're out of the playoff picture and you don't think you're going to re-sign those free agents, it's organizational malpractice to not trade them. You are literally costing yourself draft picks. You are costing yourself opportunities to add players in the future. I mean, think about how precious teams really hold those draft picks once we get to the spring. But when we're in the season, they don't think that way. So it drives me nuts when those teams just sit on their hands, let the players play out the string, and then they lose them in free agency for nothing. I mean, it is a very dumb way to do business. Now, I understand there's job security, there's ego involved, you want to set a culture. I understand all those things, but still, if you're thinking long-term and a player's not going to be with you in 2026 and your team stinks, you should be trying to acquire draft capital so that you can upgrade your roster in the future. So who are some of the teams to look at? Let's get to the sellers, and we start with the New Orleans Saints. They are 1-7. They stink. They made a quarterback change. But you know what? They actually have some interesting players. They need to decide right now, for example, are they going to sign wide receiver Chris Olave to an extension? He's under contract through 2026 on the fifth-year option. He's been a good player, but he has a concussion history, so that makes the possible extension kind of tricky. We talked about that last week. If you're a good organization, shouldn't you know by now? Does Chris Olave fit into your long-term plans? What's his asking price on an extension? Are you willing to meet it? What's the likelihood of a long-term deal? Because if he doesn't, you can trade him now because he absolutely has value. I mean, that's a guy who I think teams would be looking to trade for, especially given that it's not a long-term contract. You don't have to sign him to an extension. You can just give up some draft capital, get him for this year, get him for next year. So that's one guy, Chris Olave. Saints have another wide receiver, Rashid Shaheed, who's only signed through the end of this year. I mean, this is somebody, again, if they don't feel like he's part of their plans in 2026 and beyond, then you trade him now. He's a starting caliber wide receiver. He's a big play threat. He will have a market. So those are two guys I'm looking at with the Saints. They have other guys too, honestly. Cornerback Alante Taylor, linebacker Demario Davis, who's been there forever. Those guys are in the last year of their deals. It's the same exercise. Are they going to be with you in 2026? Do you think you're going to re-sign them? If not, you should be looking to trade them and get some draft capital. All right, next seller, the New York Jets. Got their first win of the season on Sunday, but we know they're not making the playoffs. Running back Breece Hall. He is a free agent at the end of the season, having a career year, 6th in the NFL in rushing yards. Looked awesome in that win against the Bengals last week, averaging 5 yards per carry. There's no reason to just hold on to Breece Hall and let him walk at the end of the season. There will be teams interested, I think. So he's a guy who I feel like could be on the move. Defensively, they've got edge rusher Jermaine Johnson. I think there's going to be a lot of teams that want pass rush help. Jermaine Johnson signed through 2026 on the 5th-year option. He's another guy who the Jets could potentially look to move on from. Tennessee Titans are the next team on my list. They don't have a lot of players, especially if they're not going to trade Jeffrey Simmons. Now you look at it and go, who are the players that other teams are even going to want on this roster? I know people have mentioned wide receiver Calvin Ridley. I mean, he's 31 years old and he's expensive. I really don't know what the market would be for somebody like Calvin Ridley. The Titans already traded cornerback Roger McCreary to the Rams on Monday. Maybe they trade a veteran defensive lineman, but there's really not a lot there on their roster. Another team who's in a similar spot, the Las Vegas Raiders. I made the case last week that Max Crosby, trading him is their best path to acquiring draft capital, to rebuilding. And they got to make some call. Be discreet about it. You don't have to let everyone know, Be discreet about it. Work your back channels. Let teams know, hey, if you're willing to give up 2 first-round picks, give us a call. If you're not, we're not having a conversation. And if they are willing to give up at least 2 first-round picks, I really think that's something the Raiders have to consider. Now, by all accounts, they're not considering that. Crosby doesn't want to go anywhere, so maybe it seems most likely nothing's going to happen there, but I just thought I would mention that. Wide receiver Jacoby Myers might be the more likely Raiders player to get traded. All right, a few more here. Sellers, the Miami Dolphins. Bradley Chubb, Jalen Phillips, 2 pass rushers. Again, there's a lot of teams that are in the market for pass rush help. So those are 2 players to keep an eye on. And then this one I thought might be a wild card. Devon Achane, rookie contract, signed through 2026. If you're a team that needs a running back, what would you be willing to give up for Devon Achane? Is it a 3rd? Is it a 2nd? Is it worth it for Miami to do that? Maybe not. He signed, he's on a rookie contract. He's a good player for them, but he was just another guy I took a look at and said, man, on some of these other offenses on contending teams, he would be a pretty interesting addition. 2 more sellers to get to here. Cleveland Browns are an obvious one. I think their front office is one that will look at this the right way and say, okay, we're not doing anything this year. We need draft picks. Who can we trade who's not going to be a part of this team going forward? Name that stands out on that Browns roster, tight end David Njoku. Not having a great year, but come on, that offense stinks. No one's having a great year on that offense. So if you need pass catching help, I was thinking about this. You need pass catching help. You don't want to pay maybe a premium for a wide receiver who might be available. I think you probably call the Cleveland Browns about David Njoku and say, hey, does he fit what we want to do in the passing game? Because I think he could be an interesting piece on the right offense. And the last team, the Cincinnati Bengals. Bengals, I am begging you, stop the charade. Okay. Your defense is horrendous. You're not making a playoff run. You just gave up 500 plus yards to the New York freaking Jets, who had 82 yards 2 weeks ago. I know how you've operated in the past. I know you say you're not making a move, but I'm sorry. I'm not just going to let it go and say, okay, all right, this is how they operate. No, it doesn't mean it's right. I mean, the Cincinnati Bengals absolutely should be sellers here. And we know what the big chip is. The big chip is Trey Hendrickson. Now he's battling an injury. That makes it a little bit tricky. But if you're a team that has good intel, good information, you have a good relationship either with his agent or with the Cincinnati Bengals, and you say, hell, this is just a short-term thing. He's going to be able to be the pass rusher he has been for the last few years down the stretch in the playoffs. You call the Bengals, and the Bengals have to trade him. I mean, this is so they reworked his deal. He's almost definitely gone after the season. It's a seller's market. Again, I'm telling you for the 100th time, all these teams that I'm talking about as buyers in a minute, it feels like they all need pass rush help. This is a good time to have a pass rusher that you can trade. And so I think if you're the Bengals, you're going to need that draft capital to rebuild your defense. You do not have enough good players on that defense. This has to happen. I mean, if they hold on to Trey Hendrickson, let him walk in free agency, and then next season when Joe Burrow's healthy, we're talking about, oh man, their defense stinks. They need O-line upgrades. That's organizational malpractice. You have a chance to add draft picks to try to address those needs so that you can build a great roster around Joe Burrow. So they need to be a team that takes a lot of swings in the draft. And one way to do that is to trade Trey Hendrickson. All right, let's take a break. We come back and I hit you with teams that should be buyers. And then I play a little matchmaker. This episode is brought to you by Apple. Before it was Ringer NFL, it was just an idea. I started with just a mic and a Mac and the need to discuss all things football. We thought, are we going to do a daily show? Are we going to change the logo? Who are the guests going to be? What are the topics going to be? Listen, we're still figuring it out, but no matter what you have an idea for, whether it's creating your own commentary on this week's games, starting a platform for your take on sports, or even founding your own league, go for it. You just need to get started. Your great ideas start on Mac. Find out more on apple.com/Mac. All right, we're back. So these are teams that I could see making a move in the next week, teams who believe they have a realistic chance to make a Super Bowl run or at least a playoff run. And for each buyer, I'm giving you a deal I think should happen so that if it does happen, it's like, oh, Sheil called the shot. And if it doesn't happen, who cares? You will have already moved on to the next thing. That's the beauty of podcasts. That's the beauty of a daily show, to be quite frank. All right, first buyer here is the Baltimore Ravens. And in a normal season, it would sound very silly for a 2-5 team to be a buyer, but this is the exception. The Ravens have the 6th easiest remaining schedule. They're actually the favorites now to win the AFC North if you look at FanDuel. And I'm looking at pass rush for Baltimore because you look at their team and they got guys back healthy and the defense played relatively well on Sunday, but they're 28th in pressure rate. They're 30th in sack rate. They traded edge rusher Odafe Owe already in season to get safety help, but that deal also freed up cap space. So they're positioned to take on some salary here. And the player I've got pegged for the Baltimore Ravens is Jalen Phillips from the Miami Dolphins. Baltimore sends a 3rd-round pick to Miami for Jalen Phillips. Only has 2 sacks this year, but he leads the Dolphins in pressures, leads the Dolphins in quick pressures. He's a free agent at the end of the season, so it's not like you're making some kind of big commitment and taking on a bunch of risk. He can help you now, and if he's a fit, maybe you re-sign him at the end of the season. So I was looking at the compensation, and the 49ers a couple of years ago traded a 3rd for Chase Young. So I think that's a reasonable comp here for Jalen Phillips. I can just see him in a Ravens uniform making a big play for them down the stretch or in the playoffs. All right, the next buyer is the Buffalo Bills, and they're a team that could really go in a couple different directions. Best defensive tackle on the team, Ed Oliver, suffered a biceps injury. He's out indefinitely. So they certainly could go defensive line. That would not surprise me at all. They could go secondary as well. That would not surprise me at all either. But I wonder if the Bills look at their roster and they say, you know what? Our best chance for an upgrade is to actually build on a strength and address our offense and specifically wide receiver. So I'm sticking with the trade I had last week for them. Let's send a conditional second to the Saints for Chris Olave. I really think he can. The more I was thinking about it, you're looking at their roster: Khalil Shakir, Keon Coleman, the tight ends, James Cook. Olave adds an element that they don't have. Outside receiver, kind of in that Stephon Diggs mold, great route runner, can make plays downfield. So I really like Chris Olave for the Buffalo Bills. Then maybe you make some minor moves on defense, try to set the floor there. In a perfect world, if you're yelling at me going, what are you talking about? I understand. They need help on defense. In a perfect world, they're getting pass rush help and secondary help. I just look at the market and I don't know that it's possible to get real upgrades there. So if they just kind of zoom out and say who provides us the biggest upgrade, improves our chances to win, I really think it might be someone like Chris Olave. It kind of increases your margin for error on defense. And we've seen Buffalo play almost perfect offensive games in the past. Now, they haven't gotten to the Super Bowl doing that, but that doesn't mean it's the wrong thinking. So a very interesting team to watch here, the Buffalo Bills. Next buyer, the Denver Broncos. And they're a tough one because it's not like they have one glaring need. It is a very good roster. It looks like they'll be without corner Pat Surtain for a little bit. He got injured on Sunday. That seems more of a short-term thing, not like very short-term. He's going to be out for a little bit, but it's not a season ender. And so I went to the offense with them, and I feel like they could use one more pass catcher. How about sending a 4th-round pick to the Browns for tight end David Njoku? Think about Njoku, another guy who could make plays with the ball in his hands for Sean Payton. Payton theoretically would know how to use him. He's on the last year of his deal, so you're signing on just for the rest of the season. I mean, come on, admit it. You like this one. You can see this one. David Njoku in a Broncos uniform. It makes sense. I'm not too ashamed to admit I was fist pumping in the office when I came up with this match. I was very excited about it. So I think Njoku to the Broncos makes sense. It feels like the Browns really will trade or could trade Njoku. They drafted Harold Fannin Jr. It seems like Njoku would not be a part of their future. So why just hold on to him and let him walk at the end of the season? Get something for him. I have a 4th-round pick as reasonable compensation. All right, next buyer. This is a doozy here. I got the New England Patriots, and I just think it's time to go for it. I didn't think I'd be saying that this year for the Patriots, but they've got the 3rd easiest remaining schedule. Drake May's playing like an MVP candidate. They could use wide receiver help. They could use pass rush help. I'm going to throw a little curveball your way. Are you ready? I don't know if this is being talked about on Boston Sports Talk radio or on Off the Pike, our boss. I don't know. Maybe someone's brought this up. Maybe not. I'm looking at Jacksonville, and I'm looking at Liam Cohen, who said this week that the Jaguars have no plans to trade wide receiver Brian Thomas Jr. And I'm asking, are we sure we believe him? Because anyone with eyes can see Brian Thomas Jr. has been a terrible scheme fit in Liam Cohen's system. He has looked uncomfortable. I mean, it's pretty much a weekly occurrence. He looks uncomfortable on those in breakers, trying to catch the ball in the middle of the field. I don't think he's suddenly going to get good at that. I don't think suddenly Liam Cohen's going to change his offense to fit Brian Thomas Jr.'s skill set. He has a way he wants to play. He has things he wants from that position. And I don't think Brian Thomas Jr. fits those things. But you know what Brian Thomas Jr. was great at as a rookie? Catching bombs downfield. You know who likes to throw bombs downfield? Drake May. And Brian Thomas Jr. is on a rookie deal through 2027. So if the Patriots call the Jaguars and offer a 2nd-round pick for Brian Thomas Jr., who says no? It's a good one. Admit it. It's hard to find a guy who has a wide receiver 1 ceiling and is on a rookie deal. I mean, just think about the Patriots last offseason. They had trouble finding wide receiver help. I think this is a potential solution for the Patriots and for the Jaguars. I think all the other wide receivers, Olave, Rashid Shaheed, Jacoby Myers, they would make sense too. But I wanted to get Brian Thomas Jr. in a trade, and maybe the Patriots make sense. All right, I've got one more Patriots trade for you because they have cap space. They can be aggressive, and I think they could be the Trey Hendrickson team if the Bengals trade him. They can take on the contract, and how about if they trade safety Kyle Duggar and a 3rd-round pick to the Bengals for Trey Hendrickson? So Bengals get a defensive player they can use right away, a guy who's not a regular starter for the Patriots when their other guys are healthy, so they're not losing that much. And the Bengals get a pick. Meanwhile, the Patriots get a pass rusher. So Patriots get Brian Thomas Jr. and Trey Hendrickson, and they go for it. They say, let's go try to win the Super Bowl this year. I mean, if that happens in the next week, we're going to have to hose down Patriots fans if New England makes that kind of splash here in the next week. All right, a couple more to get to. Eagles are my next buyer. It feels like a given that Howie Roseman is going to do something to upgrade the defense. The question is, what? And I think they could go edge rusher. I think they could go cornerback. And then I was thinking about it. Edge rusher, they're expected to get Nolan Smith back. Jalix Hunt has been playing well. Brandon Graham came out of retirement. It feels like they have some options there to get by. And then I'm looking at cornerback and like they don't have options. They're out of options. They tried Keely Ringo, has not worked out. They tried Adoree Jackson, he's injured, has not worked out. They might try Jacorian Bennett, who they kind of took a flyer on from the Raiders in the summer. He's far from a sure thing. How about calling up the Saints and offering a third-round pick for cornerback Alontae Taylor? It is a rental. He's only signed through the end of the year, but you solidify the weakest position on your roster as you try to make a Super Bowl run. Again, the Saints should know by now. You got to know, but you don't wait till the last second. You should know by now. Do you want Alontae Taylor in the years ahead? Then you probably should think about extending him. If he's not in your plans, then go ahead, trade him, get a third-round pick. You're 1-7 this year. That's one that could make sense for both sides. Can you just see it? Everyone tweets out Howie season, or, they can't keep getting away with this. Alontae Taylor. So, you can picture it in your head. It's perfect. Saints trade Alontae Taylor to the Eagles for a third-round pick. All right, Dallas Cowboys are next. Their defense is horrendous, and there's not a whole lot they can do to improve it significantly during the season. But Jerry Jones has told us he's willing to part with draft capital after trading away Micah Parsons. He keeps hinting at it, and I believe him. I think he probably wants to save face here. So I know reports have said that the Titans are not trading defensive tackle Jeffrey Simmons. Are we sure that the Titans are not going to trade defensive tackle Jeffrey Simmons? I mean, you got to take those reports with a grain of salt. I'm not saying the reporting is wrong, but for the right offer, of course they're trading him. If someone was like, hey, 3 first-round picks for Jeffrey Simmons, of course they're trading Jeffrey Simmons. No one's going to offer that, but you get the point. For almost every player in the NFL, there's a certain level it gets to where they do become tradable. So Jeffrey Simmons is 28 years old. He's signed to a reasonable deal through 2027, much less expensive than Micah Parsons. I know they play different positions. I'm just saying, if you're talking about front seven defensive player, you're saving a lot of money with Simmons versus Parsons. From the Titans' perspective, I'm usually not in favor of trading away very good players who are in their prime. But the Titans are not close. I mean, their roster needs a lot of work. So it's just a matter of what would it take. Like, if the Cowboys were to offer a first and a fourth, does that get Tennessee's attention? A first and a third? It might take an overpay. It just feels like the Cowboys might be willing to get aggressive if there is a blue chip player on defense who can help them beyond this year. I mean, it really feels like that's the type of player they might make a big play for. And Jeffrey Simmons, I think, fits that profile. Again, under contract, defensive tackle, position of need, an excellent player. So I don't know. Maybe Titans probably won't trade him, but that was one I thought of if the Cowboys want to call around and make a splash. I said, Max Crosby would make sense for them. It sounds like he's not going anywhere, but I think you can at least call about Simmons and see what kind of offer it takes. So there you go. Maybe a first and something else. That's kind of where I landed with Jeffrey Simmons. It's just going to be a huge letdown after all this talk if the Cowboys don't do anything and are just like, yeah, our defense is going to suck the rest of the year. There was no deal to be made. We'll see you in 2026. But who knows? That's obviously on the table with Jerry Jones and the Cowboys. All right, last one here. The Detroit Lions. I don't think they make a huge splash. It doesn't feel like they're going to make a huge splash. I think they're in pretty good shape, specifically offensively, to contend for a Super Bowl without really doing anything right now. But what about a minor move to add some pass rush? How about a 4th-round pick to the Jets for Jermaine Johnson? Now, Johnson does not have prolific production, 1 sack in 5 games this year, but he gives you a solid starter who plays hard, kind of an insurance policy with some upside. He's under contract through 2026. So again, wouldn't be a splashy move, but a complementary piece that feels like it could be more Detroit's speed. All right, that's the last one. Buyers, sellers, and deals that make sense as we look ahead to the next week in the NFL before the trade deadline. I'll be right back with the Hurry Up. The Hurry Up is our closing segment where I give you a take on news in the NFL. And the Vikings quarterback carousel took another spin on Monday with news that Carson Wentz is going to IR. He's undergoing season-ending shoulder surgery, according to The Athletic and other reports. So Wentz suffered bruised ribs in the Dublin game a few weeks ago, then a torn labrum in London against the Browns, then played 2 more games after that, was in obvious pain last Thursday night against the Rams. And now you wonder whether Wentz will get another chance to start in the NFL. But for the Vikings, it's finally time to turn back to J.J. McCarthy, who made 2 starts this season before suffering an injury. Kevin O'Connell has spent a lot of time talking about how they want to ease McCarthy back in. They don't want to rush him. They want to get his mechanics right. Well, now they have no other choice. It's time to see what J.J. McCarthy's got here in his 2nd season. And he does this as the Vikings season sort of hangs in the balance. I mean, they're in last place in the NFC North at 3-4. They're at the Lions this weekend, and they have the hardest remaining schedule in the NFL, according to the betting market. So the rest of this season might not necessarily be about winning games and getting to the playoffs. Of course, that's the goal for the Vikings, but it's really about evaluating and developing McCarthy. And McCarthy's got to show he can first stay on the field and then improve, develop, play at a level where you feel like, all right, he can be your starter going into 2026. So it's gone a little under the radar, but the Vikings defense has taken a step back, especially in recent weeks. So you can't just win games by asking McCarthy to play conservatively and not turn the ball over. Maybe they thought they could play that way going into the season, but he's going to have to make some plays if they're going to be competitive and win some of these games. So Minnesota, such a feel-good story last season with Sam Darnold. And now it feels like their 2025 season could kind of go either way here in a hurry. We'll have to see if McCarthy is up for the challenge. All right. Thanks to Christopher Sutton for producing. Kiera Givens on social, and additional production supervision by Conor Nevins and Arjuna Ramgopowell. We'll talk to you tomorrow on the Ringer NFL Show. Must be 21 plus and present in select states. For Kansas, in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, or 18 plus and present in D.C., Kentucky, or Wyoming. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit rg-help.com. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York.